Hello again, and happy and blessed Easter week from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. On May the 13th, 1981, so almost exactly 40 years ago, an attempt was made on the life of Pope John Paul II, the former Cardinal Karol Wojtyła from Poland, on St. Peter's Square, so outside St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, which is an independent enclave or exclave inside the city of Rome, Italy's capital. So coming as it did just 1.5 months after the attempted assassination of US President Ronald Reagan, of course, it raised fears and anxieties, but also numerous conspiracy theories around the world, not only in the United States and Italy, but far beyond, or the Vatican City. Pope John Paul at the time had only been in office for 2.5 years. He had been elected and inaugurated in October 1978 after the sudden death and still somewhat debated death of his predecessor, Pope John Paul I, the former Cardinal Albino Luciani, so far the last Italian to hold the papacy, because all the popes since then have been, well, officially non-Italians, although technically the current Pope, Franciscus Jorge Bergoglio, is an Italian, albeit one who has lived most of his life in Argentina because his parents immigrated there in the early 20th century. But the last, Italian one who has been also a native citizen of Italy was Albino Luciani, or the late Pope John Paul I. Already his death, after just 33 days in office, after his easy and quick election in the papal conclave of August 1978, following the death of his predecessor, I think Paul VI, if I'm not mistaken, I'll check later, aroused a number of conspiracy theories that actually he had wanted to expose corruption inside the Vatican, and that was why, because allegedly then he was assassinated. However, an examination of his health and medical history showed that despite being such a warmly smiling and happy and optimistic man, he actually had a serious case of heart disease. And according to a French language biography of the late Pope John Paul II, his successor, unfortunately, I have forgotten its author, its title, and its publisher, but I possessed it for quite many years in Finland, or several years anyway. According to that book, quoting an investigative journalist or historian, Pope John Paul I had stopped taking his heart medication and had entrusted his fate to God, had left his fate in the hands of God. So that would have been a kind of suicide, or at least a fatalistic action, come what may, as we say here in the Philippines, bahala na. On the scene was arrested the extremist Turkish terrorist, Mr. Mehmet Ali Aja, who was responsible for the assassination. Another Turkish terrorist fled the scene because he panicked. His role had been to throw a grenade into the or near the crowd of Catholics around the Pope. It was after or Friday, and the Pope was making his usual afternoon car ride around the St. Peter's Square. And that would have distracted the crowd and then made many of them panic and would have made the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II easier, if not even successful. Anyway, the Pope was able to recover from the attack. He lived almost 24 years longer, passing away of natural causes in April 2005. And he was then succeeded by Pope Benedict XVI, former Cardinal Josef Maria Ratzinger of Germany, who unprecedentedly abdicated in 2013 and was then replaced by Pope Franciscus, or Francis, the former Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio of Argentina. As in President Reagan's case, actually, the assassination nearly succeeded, and actually it seems that the Pope suffered physically more from the assassination attempt than Reagan, and started to walk then with a stooped posture, especially in the 1990s. And I can recall watching him on television in the early years of this century, if I remember correctly, pitying him because he looked already so weak and sick. Although he only died at the ripe old age of 84. Reagan, by contrast, was 93 when he passed away in June 2004. And of course, we have to add to one of the reasons for the context of these numerous conspiracy theories that there was a plot to assassinate, some sinister plot to assassinate the Pope and Reagan. The fact that the Cold War was very much alive 40 years ago in 1981. The détente had basically ended with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in December 1979, not quite 1.5 years before the Pope's attempted assassination. And we have to remember that the Pope's native land, Poland, was in a severe political crisis and would be placed under martial law, a kind of military rule under General and Prime Minister Wojciech Jaruzelski in December 1981, just 7 months after the assassination attempt on the Pope. In 1983, I think in December of that year, the Pope visited Mr. Aja in the prison, and the two spoke privately, and he professed that he had forgiven Aja, but later, according to the French language Wikipedia article on this attempted assassination, the Pope had privately told one of his close friends, acquaintances, or assistants that he was disappointed in the fact that Aja did not seem to be sorry for the assassination. And Poland was a communist country, we have to remember, and would be until 1989. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't a Friday, but Wednesday. Yeah, and likewise, those of you who have watched my French language video about it, if I said vendredi, it should be mercredi. So, Mr. Aja, Mehmet Ali Aja, was able to hit the Pope 4 times, and the Pope suffered severe blood loss. However, he was pardoned by Italian President Carlo Azeglio Ciampi at the Pope's request and was deported to Turkey in June 2000. In 1979, the New York Times reported that Aja, whom it called the self-confessed killer of an Istanbul newspaperman, Mr. Abdi İpekçi, editor of the Turkish newspaper Milliyet, had described the Pope as the masked leader of the Crusades, meaning the officially or nominally Christian, more specifically Catholic Crusades that had started in the late 1090s and led to widespread looting and the killing of many Muslims, including civilians in the Middle East, including the Holy Land. And threatened to shoot him if he did not cancel his planned visit to Turkey. However, it went ahead in late November 1979. The paper also said on November the 28th, 1979, that Mr. Aja planned to assassinate the Pope for the then still ongoing attack as a revenge. for the then still ongoing attack on the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, which had begun on November the 20th. And Mr. Aja blamed the United States or Israel for that attack. The open-top Fiat Pope Mobile, which was carrying the Pope at the time of the attempted assassination, is now in the Vatican museums. Beginning in August 1980, Aja, under the alias or false name of Vilperi, began crisscrossing the Mediterranean region, changing passports and identities, so showing that he was quite a skilled cheater, liar, perhaps to hide his point of origin in Sofia, Bulgaria. And for several years there was a theory according to which the communist Bulgaria's secret service was somehow involved in this assassination attempt. On May the 10th, 1981, so just 3 days before the assassination attempt, he entered Rome, coming by train from Milan. According to Aja's later testimony, he met 3 accomplices in Rome, 1 a fellow Turk and 2 Bulgarians, with the operation being commanded by Mr. Zilo Vasilev, the Bulgarian military attaché in Italy. He said that he was assigned this mission by Turkish mafioso Bekir Çelenk in Bulgaria. According to Mr. Aja, the plan was that he and the backup gunman Oral Çelik would open fire on the Pope in St. Peter's Square and escape to the Bulgarian embassy under the cover of the panic generated by a small explosion. On May the 13th, 1981, they sat in St. Peter's Square writing postcards waiting for the Pope to arrive. And when the Pope passed through an adoring and excited crowd of supporters, Aja fired 4 shots at 5:17 p.m. local time with a 9mm Browning high-power semi-automatic pistol, critically wounding him. He fled the scene as the crowd was in shock and disposed of the pistol by throwing it under a truck. However, a Vatican security chief, Mr. Camillo Chibin, a nun, according to that French language biography of the Pope, which I have forgotten the author of the title of and the publication year of and the publisher of even, the nun would actually have grabbed one of the arms of the assassin, shouting, "It was you," or "It is you, c'est vous, c'est vous." And several spectators who prevented him from firing more shots or escaping, and he was arrested. 2 of the non-fatal bullets lodged in the Pope's lower intestine, while the other 2 hit his left index finger and right arm and also injured 2 bystanders. The Pope's personal secretary and fellow Pole, Mr. Stanislav Dziwisz, asked where he was hit, and the Pope, writhing in agony, shouted in response, "In the stomach." So 2 bystanders were injured, and Oder of Buffalo, New York, United States, who was stuck in the chest, and Rose Hall of Jamaica, who was slightly wounded in the arm. The Pope was immediately rushed to the hospital while the authorities combed the site for evidence. Çelik panicked and fled without setting off his bomb or opening fire. Aja was sentenced in July 1981 to life imprisonment for the assassination attempt. However, he was pardoned by Italian President Carlo Azeglio Ciampi at the Pope's request in June 2000. In Turkey, Mr. Aja remained incarcerated until January 2006. However, he was returned to jail later that January and served until January 2010. Although Aja was quoted as saying that to him the Pope was the incarnation of all that is capitalism and attempted to murder him, he developed a friendship with the Pope. In early February 2005, only 2 months before the Pope passed away, Aja sent a letter to John Paul II wishing him well. Several theories exist concerning Aja's assassination attempt. One, which was at first propagated by the American media and strongly advocated since the early 1980s by Michael Ledeen and Claire Sterling, among others, was that the assassination attempt had originated from the Soviet Union and that the notorious and brutal Soviet Secret Service KGB had instructed the Bulgarian and East German secret services to carry out the mission. The Bulgarian Secret Service was allegedly instructed by the KGB to assassinate the Pope because of his support for Poland's pro-democracy Solidarity trade union movement, which they saw as one of the most significant threats to the Soviet rule over Eastern Europe. American linguists and critics Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman termed this as the spread of disinformation as news in their book Manufacturing Consent in 1988, claiming that there was no evidence to support this claim, while Wolfgang Achtner of The Independent, a British newspaper, dubbed it one of the most successful cases, certainly the most publicized, of disinformation. Aja himself gave multiple and often contradictory statements on the assassination at different times. Attorney Antonio Marini stated that Mr. Aja had manipulated all of the legal officials dealing with him, telling hundreds of lies, continually changing versions, and forcing them to open tens of different investigations. Originally, Aja claimed to belong to the Marxist Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. However, the front, when contacted, denied any ties to him. KGB Director Yuri Andropov, who would briefly serve as the Soviet leader from November 1982 until his death in February 1984, was convinced that Pope John Paul II's election was the product of a British-German conspiracy orchestrated by a Polish-American diplomat, Mr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who served as the National Security Advisor to President Jimmy Carter of the United States from 1977 to 1981, to undermine the Soviet rule over the largely Catholic Poland and ultimately to cause the collapse of the entire Soviet Union. The Pope's announcement of a pilgrimage to Warsaw, and he actually visited Poland in June 1979 after just 8 months in office as the Pope, fueled Andropov's apprehension, and he issued a secret memorandum to Soviet school teachers calling the Pope our enemy. Aja had several times visited Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. He also claimed to have had contacts with a Bulgarian agent in Rome, whose cover was the Bulgarian National Airline Office. However, a Bulgarian working in Rome for Balkan Air, Mr. Sergei Antonov, was found not guilty in 1986 after a 3-year trial. According to the CIA's chief of staff in in Turkey, Paul Hentze, Aja later stated that in Sofia he was once approached by the Bulgarian Secret Service and Turkish mafiosi who offered him 3 million German marks to assassinate the Pope. American journalist Arnaud de Bourggrave, apparently of French origin, claimed that the Bulgarians chose Aja simply to supply themselves with plausible deniability, choosing a member of the Grey Wolves, the Turkish terrorist organization where Aja belonged, that had allegedly been involved with the local KGB in drug smuggling routes through Bulgaria to Western Europe, would distance themselves because of the implausibility of the link. Some writers, including Edward S. Herman, co-author with Frank Broadhead of The Rise and Fall of the Bulgarian Connection, 1986, and Michael Parenti, believed Aja's story was dubious as Aja made no claims of Bulgarian involvement until he had been isolated in solitary confinement and visited by Italian military intelligence agents. Le Monde Diplomatique, the diplomatic version of the famous French and international newspaper Le Monde, the World, alleged that Abdullah Chatli leader of the Grey Wolves, had organized the assassination attempt in exchange for the sum of 3 million German marks for the Grey Wolves. According to the Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera, documents recovered from former East German intelligence services confirm the 1981 assassination attempt John Paul II to have been ordered by the Soviet KGB and assigned to Bulgarian and East German agents with the Stasi, the notorious East German Secret Service, an abbreviation of the words Staats, or of the word Staatssicherheit, or state security, to coordinate the operation and cover up the traces afterwards. However, Markus Wolf, former Stasi spy master, has denied any links and claimed the files had already been sent in 1995. In 2009, journalist and former Army intelligence officer John Kohler published Spies in the Vatican, the Soviet Union's Cold War against the Catholic Church, mining most the East German and Polish secret police archives. Kohler claims that the attempt was KGB-backed and gives details. So Pope John Paul, who had been born in May 1920, passed away on April 2nd, 2005. He was famous for speaking out in favor of human rights and democracy while holding on to the conservative Catholic teachings, in other words, opposing abortion and at least open contraception, opposing the heterosexual partnerships, in other words, heterosexual couples being together without being married, and opposing the same-sex marriage as well. He also opposed capital punishment and the ordination of women. He did support the reforms of the Second Vatican Council. He visited 129 countries during his pontificate of 26 and a half years. He also increased the Roman Catholic Church's dialogue with various Protestant churches, the Eastern Orthodox Church, Judaism, and Islam. And he has been credited with creating partly the atmosphere that helped Eastern Europe to democratize between 1989 and 1992. He was declared a saint on May 1st, 2011, after the Congregation for the Causes of Saints attributed one miracle to his intercession, the healing of a French nun called Marie-Simon Pierre from Parkinson's disease. The second miracle was approved on July 2nd, 2013, and was confirmed by Pope Francis 2 days later. And he was then officially canonized on April 27th, 2014, again a Divine Mercy Sunday, together with John the 23rd. So I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a great, happy and blessed Easter.